Krishna, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya, Bhutale Srimate, Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste, Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine, Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam pungum bandete gurum yat krupatam ham bande Shri Gurum Dinatarine. Hare Krishna. So today is the verse number 29. So Krishna is summarizing the contents of this chapter, and he is also explaining how a yogi or a devotee or a person who can see the knower of the body or kshetragya becomes situated in sameness or equality. So continuing the same theme in this verse also. So let us see. Sama pashyan hi sarvatra.
Samam pashyan hi sarvatra.
Samavastitim Ishwaram.
Samavastitam Ishwaram.
Na hinasti atma atmanam.
Na hinasti atmanatmana.
Na hinasti atmana atmana.
Na hinasti atmanatmana.
Tato yati param gatim.
Tato yati param gatim.
Let's do once more. Samapashyan hi sarvatra.
Samam pashyan hi sarvatra.
Samavastitam Ishwaram.
Samavastitam Ishwaram.
Na hinasti atmanatmanam.
Na hinasti atmanatmana.
Tato yati param gatim.
Tato yati param gatim.
Okay, please chant.
Samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavastitam ishvaram nahi nastyatmanatmana tato yati param gatim.
Samam pasyan hi sarvatra samavasthitam ishvaram nahi nasti atmana atmanam tato yati param gatim.
Okay, thank you very much. So, translation and purport. One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus, he approaches the transcendental destination, purport. The living entity, by accepting his material existence, has become situated differently than his spiritual existence. But if one understands that Supreme is situated in his Paramatma manifestation everywhere, that is, if one can see the presence of Supreme Personality of Godhead in every living entity, he does not degrade himself by destructive mentality, and he therefore gradually advances to the spiritual world. The mind is generally addicted to sense gratifying process, but when mind turns to super soul, one becomes advanced in spiritual understanding. So very instructive and practically can be experienced. Like mind, we have seen in so many places that mind is friend, also enemy. It is friend when it works for spiritual thing, and it is enemy when it works for material gains. So mind also is the reason of duality. So heat and cold, and sukha and dukkha, victory and loss, and friend and enemy. All these dualities are created by mind. So the mind actually, that's why Srila Prabhupada used the word degrade, because Actually, if the mind works correctly, it will not fall into this duality thing. It will not desire, it will not become happy or sad. It will not be envious about somebody or jealous. So by these activities, actually, we degrade our consciousness, we degrade our soul, because the mind, the soul actually trapped in the body, follows the senses. So that is actually the degradation of our consciousness. So mind is the cause. But if we control the mind by intelligence and the spiritual intelligence, when we say intelligence, that in every body there is super soul. So this actually we have to becomes possible when we somehow realize the equality in all the living beings, how they are surviving, how they are conscious, how their existence is maintained. So like we work, right? I work, everybody works to goes to office, we work so hard, for what? Actually, for our survival. We want food, we want shelter. So that's why we do. But if you see the animals and the birds, they are also surviving. They are also living. So they are also maintained by somebody. We have to can look in this perspective that they are maintained by somebody. And who is maintaining? Actually, Super Soul is maintaining by his presence. So he guides everyone if we take the shelter. So in one way, the mind, because we have superior intelligence, the human being, and superior consciousness, so the mind is also strong. So then the mind starts doing more problems to us also, because it starts more comparison, more jealousy, more envy, more doubting. All these things come from mind. And so the mind actually degrades. So na hinasti atmana atmana. So if we understand the equality of presence of super soul everywhere in the living beings, then we will not degrade our consciousness. We will be able to see, as mentioned in the last verse, sama sarveshu bhuteshu. We can see the common point in all living entities, apart from the body, color, everything. So that is very high level of consciousness, because it requires some realizations. And for that, we need a serious sadhana, a serious bhakti, serious chanting, seriously following the rules of bhakti. Then we get some realizations which help us to have this vision. So in Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, the symptoms of Kali Yuga, it is mentioned that in the Kali Yuga, this tendency of a person to have doubts on others, to be envious about others, or to enforce our thoughts on others will keep increasing. Why? Because the mind and the consciousness getting more and more degraded with a number of additional desires, and that are so uncontrollable that a person cannot control his mind, and he goes into deep into these envious thoughts and jealous thoughts, and criticizing others, finding problems in others, always complaining. So this type of negativity, and then the mind goes into that state. We can see this in this COVID situation, when we are stuck up in the house, how the mentality of the people is getting so degraded that they are getting frustrated. They are not able to maintain the mind balance also, because of no spiritual practice and no knowledge of higher existence. So they're struggling very hard in this situation. But when we have spiritual intelligence, we have spiritual understandings, we can see the soul we can at least read and we have some faith. Yeah, there is soul, there is super soul. A little bit faith in this also actually gives a lot of spiritual strength to overcome all these day-to-day problems. And by this, just reading this Bhagavad Gita, trying to understand, actually just by chanting the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita also, the consciousness changes. This is experienced by many uh, philosophers, that by just chanting the shlokas, the consciousness increases because the vibration is different. This vibration coming from this stotra, coming from mantra, coming from each shloka is different. So, by being in spiritual contact, by in spiritual atmosphere, our consciousness changes, and that helps us in our day-to-day life also. Without knowing, actually, it helps. So, it's very important to at least we practically, if we cannot experience, at least theoretically, we can have faith. Yeah, there is soul, there is a super soul in all the living beings, and he is the common factor or the connecting factor of all the living beings. At least theoretically, we can have this understanding and faith, and that will help us to slowly have those realizations. And with the increased consciousness, we can uh, have spiritual intelligence to uh, be equal. In that state, uh, samam hi pasyan hi sarvatra. Then we will equally try to see everyone, how everyone is connected. And there are devotees like this who can see everyone same, and then they are happy. And because why they are happy? Because they can see the sameness, connection, and then they don't follow the mind's dictatorship of creating dualities and problems. So these verses, actually Sri Krishna is trying to tell that try to see the equality. Previously also in many verses he has said we should be sameness, equality. So here he is giving how we can do that. So we can see the presence of Paramatma, and when we can see that, then we can go Paraham Gatim, then we can go to transcendental destination, which is beyond the material world. So in these last three shlokas, I think Krishna explained about the uh, super soul, how presence of super soul helps us, and it helps us for transcendental understandings. Now he will also, Krishna, I think Krishna explains about the Prakriti also, how understanding the Prakriti helps. Because Krishna told that if you understand Jiva, Kshetra, Kshetragya and Geya, then you can go beyond the material world. So he will give more explanation how we can understand this in the next verses. So we'll see those from tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So any questions, any additions? Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.